If you're keeping tally, go ahead and put 1 in the Bitcoin column and 0 in the United States of America government bond column as the U.S. gets downgraded and investors flock to Bitcoin. It's not just the U.S. Japan is in crisis mode again with their investors flocking to Bitcoin. Is this the massive squeeze we're about to see that's going to push Bitcoin's price to new all-time highs to $120, $130, maybe $150,000? We're going to have that very important conversation. Lots of people has been buying Bitcoin, including MicroStrategy, but it's not all good news in the strategy camp as there's a class action lawsuit that has been filed. What does that mean if you're a shareholder of Strategy or if you're Michael Saylor and a Bitcoin holder? We'll talk about some altcoins. We're seeing a little bit of a rally from the markets. And which ones do we have our eye on? We have that and much, much more on today's episode of SINCITY Crypto. Let's go.
Hola! It's your boy Big Rob back in the house. Welcome to SINCITY Crypto, home of the internet-focused cryptocurrency channel.
Internet focus,
baby.
Oh.
Guess what? Blockchain's on the internet. And guess what else is
Everything.
home? Shut up. Guess what else is home? In Las Vegas. It is the Bitcoin Conference. It is a week away. Oh, I'm so excited. The Bitcoin Conference is finally here. 2025 Bitcoin Conference. We just announced J.D. Vance as one of the keynote speakers. I am so
announced, huh?
No, not well.
We're working with
the city announced it. You know what I mean? Hey, look, Vegas is doing big things now.
The conference announced it. Are you okay? It's going to be a fun week this week, guys. Yeah, really fun week. Mm-hmm. Joined with my boy Rob. Mm-hmm. I hope to be my boy Rocco, but he keeps clowning on me and taking Rob's side on everything. This feud will never die unless Rocco just admits that he's just been backing Robin up. But we're not going to get into that conversation because it's Monday and a lot of important things to talk about. And let's start with this article right here. The U.S. loses the last perfect rating amid rising debt. This was pretty big, you guys, and this happened on Sunday, yesterday. In lowering the U.S. rating from AAA to AA1, Moody's noted that successive U.S. administrations had failed to reverse ballooning deficits and interest costs. So what does this mean? Now, one thing to say, okay? Remember, Standard & Poor's, Moody's, they were the ones that gave those mortgage-backed bonds, the whole housing crisis in 2008. They gave them A ratings. And well, we know they were not A ratings. And so just take that with a grain of salt. But nonetheless, this is still a warning sign. A lot of people overreacted. The futures market in traditional finance opened in the red. We'll take a peek at, actually, we're going to take a peek right now. Where's the Dow? Where's the NASDAQ? So here you go. S&P claws back after investors lose back losses as investors shake off the Moody's ratings. NASDAQ is still, NASDAQ is flat.
The U.S. is acting just like our U.S. civilians. It was like, oh crap, our credit sucks. Everyone gets upset. The wife is mad at you. And then you go out and buy a new car. That's what happened to our markets. You know what? They were spooked. They were like, hey, our credit rating got downgraded. Everyone sell off. And then they were like, wait a second. We're the U.S. We're going to just buy ourselves out of this thing. So we're good. Now the markets have bounced back in true American fashion. We are true patriots of bad credit. How you doing?
There's any coffee over there?
I mean, I nailed it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you nailed it, my friend. Well, Bitcoin liked it. Take a look at this. This is Bitcoin on the 1 hour. So this was yesterday at around 1 p.m. Pacific time. Bitcoin came back, retested this 200 AMA on the 1 hour, rallied around 3.5% to our current local high, which is $107,000. Retraced that move completely plus some, and then came in to this W pattern here and is looking to push that 105.8 level yet again, as we are currently at 105.3 for BTC. I can't lie. I was watching this move yesterday. I was like, all right, here we go. 110, 112, and then we got stopped out What are your thoughts on the news of the U.S. government losing? And obviously, investors found confidence in Bitcoin. Do you think that will continue? And are you concerned at all that Bitcoin couldn't sustain that move past new all-time highs?
Well, it's a newsflash. The U.S. has unsustainable debt growth that has no sign of escape in the long term. I'm just surprised why all of a sudden this ends up being some big headline just because.
What do you mean? What do you mean? Why are you surprised? That's not good.
I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying that how are people overreacting to this? Like
That's what the markets do, man.
But what I'm saying is that they're reacting to the fact that we have debt that we're not going to be able to pay off. This is not anything new, and I think everyone understands it. When everyone looks at the U.S. debt clock thing or whatever, what's that U.S. debt?
But Robin, it's a difference between saying
clock thing here.
It's the difference between me and my girlfriend are going to get married. We're going to get married versus you put a ring on the finger and then it becomes a reality, right? Same thing. Everyone knew the U.S. debt was unsustainable, but when Moody's comes in and downgrades them, then it becomes official. What?
That's like having the most broken marriage ever, and then all of a sudden, grandma comes in and be like, "I told you she wasn't good for you." It'd be like, everyone knows she wasn't good for you just because grandma comes in.
Doesn't matter. Grandma seals the deal.
Like now, all of a sudden, everyone's all like, "Oh, I thought they were perfect together." Like everyone knew it.
Listen, no one
cares.
This
is not going anywhere. This is the U.S. debt clock, and so this number is always.
Wait, where's the Doge?
This one is always going up. And so if anybody thought that we were going to pay this thing down, which is just ballooning and doubling every like 3.5 years, well, I mean, joke's on you because this thing is not getting paid off. And the fact that some organization stepped up and said, hey, guess what? We don't believe the U.S. is going to be able to pay back their debts, so we're downgrading them. Everyone panics and sells. And then we start off our show with, oh, my God. We got debt we can't pay off. This is no surprise. And am I the only one in this room that understood that we had this debt? Did you think we were going to pay this off, David? Did you think this 36 was going down to zero?
No. Well, if we sell enough of the gold cards, the $5 million, a lot of money. Listen, at the end of the day, it happened. They got downgraded. It's official now in the eyes of Wall Street. And people panicked. People sold off, and we saw Bitcoin rally. And this is the beauty. I think now this is not just the first time. This is now multiple instances where there's some sort of shakeup in government and macro and currency that we see a big price gain in the price of Bitcoin. And so that should tell you something on top of all the wars and the sanctions and everything else.
You know what this U.S. debt number reminds me of? You ever been here in Vegas? We got these slot machines all the time. They got those progressive jackpots on the top, and the number just keeps going up. But nobody can ever hit the damn thing. It's just always there, just keeps adding up. And you're like, when's this thing? When's somebody gonna hit this thing? Is it go back to zero?
I had one time.
Did you?
On my wife's birthday for $12,000.
$12,000, huh?
Yeah.
Did you buy that car you got outside? It looks like a $12,000 car.
Idiot. We have this as well. Asset flows last week. BTC saw $500 million flow in. Ethereum, very surprising. $205 million flowed into ETH last week from institutions. And SWI continues its streak of inflows, 9.3 million, the second altcoin in terms of largest inflows. And then really no outflows, really. Multi-asset down 2.8, and then Solana, $890,000, not even $1 million of outflow. So that is nothing of importance. But Bitcoin and ETH, $750 million flowed in to those ecosystems. And so again, just a trend of people buying Bitcoin. So yeah, speaking of people buying Bitcoin, Metaplanet announced they acquired an additional 1,004 BTC. Metaplanet, a lot of people say this is the MicroStrategy of Japan. Now, the MicroStrategy of the US is, well, strategy. They also bought 7,390 Bitcoin for $750 million with an average price of $103,498. And they now hold 576,230 Bitcoin at an average price of $69,726, up a 1.5x on their entire position when it comes to their cost basis.
Dude, I'm not surprised by their buys at all. But I will just say that I guess I'm somewhat caught off guard with how many big buys, right? I thought that $1 billion buys, $1 billion. I mean, I know this one wasn't quite $1 billion, but it's pretty close to it. And it's just been almost every buy is somewhat near $1 billion. And I know they're going to be buying Bitcoin. And I know when they first dropped $1 billion, we were like, holy crap. I think he dropped 1.5 billion. Was their first big buy. Now
it's not even newsworthy almost.
Yeah, now it's like, oh, you know what? Here's another billion. Here's another billion. Here's another billion. It's quite impressive that all their buys, and I would assume that next week they'll probably have another buy. It seems like they're buying every week now. And so at $1 billion per week, I mean, you're talking, $50 billion by the end of the year if you were to add those up. Now, I know he didn't quite scratch $1 billion this time or the last buy, but if you're somewhere near $50 billion a year, that's crazy, man. And then as Bitcoin's price, accumulates and grows, then at this same time, they're going to be generating more income because there's going to be more volatility. More traders are going to flock to MicroStrategy stock. And then they're going to be able to raise more capital. In turn, maybe the buys end up becoming normal $2 billion buys, right? I mean, here's the thing. Like, if MicroStrategy's stock price, where is their stock price at right now? Let's take a look at that. MSTR. And so you look here on just on the 1 year, up from $130 per stock up to $400. So over 3x in the span of September. So about 8 months, we've had a 3x in the stock price. And so if they were to say 2x from here, say MicroStrategy's stock price got to $1,000, I would estimate that through their company's valuation, the buys are going to go from $1 billion to $2 billion per week, right? Don't you think?
I mean, yeah, if they're going to try to buy the same amount of Bitcoin, they're going to.
Yeah, and I mean, if they have twice as much value, if their company is valued twice as much as it is now, they could probably generate twice as much capital and allocate twice as much money towards Bitcoin. This is very, very round, rudimentary numbers, but we saw that when the company's stock price was lower, they weren't putting in these big ass buys. They were buying 200 million, 300 million. Now that their company's worth a lot more per stock price and valuation, they're buying bigger amounts. And what will happen to the stock price when Bitcoin's price is $200,000? When Bitcoin's price is $200,000, there's just no logical way that I can get to where MicroStrategy isn't at over $1,000 on stock price.
The thing about this, Robin, how are companies valuated, right? When you do fundamental analysis in Wall Street, how do they evaluate? They look at stuff like debt, your accounts receivable. They look at your IP, what's that worth? And a lot of it's intangible, right? You can project revenue 10 years and you have a multiplier for that. You can project how much money your new product or your new IP is going to bring over 10 years. These are all projections. But when you look at a company like Strategy and you see a tangible asset that is on their balance sheet and it's worth $50 billion, it is so easy to raise money and to attract investors, which is exactly what they've been doing. And so it's only going to favor them. But to the downside, though, if Bitcoin starts falling, if we see another, which I don't think is going to happen, if we see another 70% bear market for Bitcoin, Strategy's stock will tank. It will. It's going to, like Sailor says, it's a 3x play on actual Bitcoin. Jimmy asked a question, so I decided to do a poll. Is Rob wearing jeans or slacks? Make sure to cast your vote, and then I'll reveal the answer in the show a little bit later. Okay. And then a couple more things on this Bitcoin. Dejasia. They adopt the Bitcoin treasury strategy and plan to raise up to $100 million to buy BTC. This is the new thing. We're announcing we're going to buy Bitcoin. Stock price shoots up. There was another scenario with this, I think, last week, and the price tripled of the stock. And then back to strategy. A class action lawsuit has been filed against Michael Saylor's company, alleging misleading statements about its Bitcoin strategy. Rob, do you think this has anything to do with him telling people to sell a kidney and sell a tooth for Bitcoin, or do you think it's more than that?
I don't have any idea what the details of this is. So I guess all I can say is what part of their strategy doesn't really make sense. Or I mean, he's all in on buying Bitcoin.
I'm not even gonna. I'm not even going to speculate because I have no idea. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to pretend to be a lawyer. I don't even know what the lawsuit says, but it says misleading statements.
If it was any other company that had like a diverse like action plan or something like that, like I guess, but their mission statement is about as clear cut and clean as humanly possible. We're going to buy as much Bitcoin as humanly possible. Right?
Listen, man.
I mean, that's their thing. Like, there's nothing to it. Like, what do they think? They're going to buy some Litecoin? Like, I don't know. Like,
there is no second best.
Exactly. It just seems very, very interesting. Like, what the hell are you suing for? But like, we thought they were going to pick up some meme coins.
They are who we thought they were. Okay. With that being said, I do want to share a couple more posts here. This is from JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon said that they will allow clients to buy Bitcoin. Wow. Thank you for allowing me to use my own money to buy something. I really appreciate it, Jamie Dimon. I just was waking up with night sweats, just not knowing if I can use my own money in your account to buy whatever I'd like. All jokes aside, though, this is coming, but they're not going to custody for them. They're just going to allow their clients to buy Bitcoin. It sounds so dumb. You know what I'm saying?
I would not be surprised if JP Morgan all of a sudden comes out of nowhere as like the third largest wallet for Bitcoin holders.
I could see that.
Yeah. And it'll just be like the instant like flippening that just like, where? Like they just secretly been positioning this whole time. You know, that's how it is, man. These banks, this is what they do, man. These large companies, they say do this, don't do that. Meanwhile, they do that and don't do this. Whatever version. Inverse correlation. Yeah, they always they want to better themselves. And so they don't want everyone to come in, buy Bitcoin before they got their position on it. If they truly believe in it. And I believe that's the scenario. You've heard Jamie Dimon, he kind of flipped his stance.
Not really. He's still shitting on Bitcoin. Not nearly as bad as he used to, but
he still flipped his stance.
He still says he thinks he doesn't believe in blockchain technology and Bitcoin. He still said that, but he's like, look, we're going to let the people buy it. Yeah.
Far cry from where he was, though.
Shout out to Blockchain Basement. They're in here. We look forward to seeing you guys next week. Yeah, we're excited for next week. Okay. With that being said, Rob, let's take a look at the market.
All right, we got some nice price movement on Bitcoin here. We got 105,376. Yesterday, we saw Bitcoin eyeballing that previous all-time high. It got to $106,800 here on CoinMarketCap. We did see it briefly cross over 107,000 on a couple exchanges. That was short-lived, and also, Blockchain Basement says Rob is definitely not wearing any pants.
I can definitely confirm he is wearing pants.
Wheel.
Unless it's too. Never mind.
I got tennis shorts on with them pulled to the side. You know what I'm saying? So, anyways, you got some Okay, so getting into Bitcoin. So we basically went up, tested the previous all-time high. That's essentially what happened. We were a few $100, maybe $1,000 off of previous all-time highs, but we were right there. We got rejected, which I think is very healthy. I think that we'll probably go back up, test it one more time. A lot of times you see Bitcoin test, get rejected, test, get rejected. Third time's the breakout. That tends to happen more so than not. Now, getting into the altcoins, there hasn't been a lot of altcoins are down a little bit. It's a little surprising. Now, taking a look at what's down, you got Four, Brett, Athena, Caspa, Jupiter, Toncoin, Radium, Artificial Superintelligence, Solana, a lot of red here. Not anything super dramatic. Most of these altcoins are down about 5%, with the exception of Four and Brett. Now, Caspa's in an interesting situation. I know we highlighted Caspa last week. I think that once you get Bitcoin into price discovery, community-led projects, and let's be honest with you, Caspa's got one of the strongest communities out there. And some people might say, hey, that's not good. Well, I like to argue when prices go euphoric, things are in price discovery, people are looking for the next coin. They go with what they see on the internet. They go with what's trending. And I think that Caspa has consolidated and traded sideways for far too long. It is down on the 1 year. And so at 10 cents, I do see a 20, 30 cent Caspa within the next 90 days. I've been calling this out. I know we have been a little quiet on Caspa, let's say the last 3 or 4 months. It's just because we
did a video last week.
Yeah, no, but what I'm saying is that I'm talking up until the last week. So it basically, since this breakout here, we had identified like, hey, like we might not have highlighted Caspa quite as much as we had historically. There wasn't enough movement in the market. We're like, you know what? I believe in Caspa. It's always a great time to accumulate. But now in the last about month and a half, we've been telling you guys, like, look, once we saw Caspa hit that 5-6 cents, we're like, look, this is a great entry point. The market's starting to reverse. Bitcoin put it in its bottom, or local bottom, and we're going to go all in on Caspa. And I think now might be one of the strongest times to buy at 10 cents. I think that if you get a breakout in Bitcoin like we think we're going to see, I would expect Caspa to absolutely take off, be one of the strongest performing altcoins in the top 100. So if you haven't put a position in on Caspa, I'd highly suggest taking a look at one of the channel's favorite projects. And then that's all I got, David.
Why are your market segments so short? All right, it's time to end the poll. Guys, I'm proud to announce that 57% of you were right. He is wearing jeans, but they're white jeans. So he's white on white on white.
I'm all white, baby.
Yeah.
All white.
Need to get my man some color here.
The baker.
White socks. You got white.
Panadero.
Do you want to confirm you got tidy whities on?
My boy David said, hey, look like you're going to a Baptist church on Sunday. And I said, hold on, player.
You're such an idiot.
No, he's making him fresh bread.
And I was like, look, man.
You're an idiot, bro. You are a complete and utter idiot. My God. Why? Okay. Before we move on, today's show is brought to you by, we're excited to announce one of our newer partners is Doppler Finance. And why are we so excited? Well, one, the thing is pretty badass. Two, it's on XRP. And so if you're not familiar, Doppler Finance is the first XRP5 protocol where you can earn yield. It's got the first mover advantage. It's got institutional grade custody, market leading yield, which is around 3.5 to 4% APY. And then you can earn on chain. If you want to learn more, go to doppler.finance. There should be a link in the description of this video, and we're excited to see where they take this thing. They're actually working directly with Ripple. And so we know how important DeFi is with RLUSD, the court case being dropped, futures going live, Ripple's looking to expand. I think Doppler Finance, man, this thing has some real opportunity. And so big thank you to them for sponsoring today's show.
There's some interesting comments. Rogue Yoshi said, dressed like Mark Davis must be something in the Vegas water. And then Raul said, Rob going to a P. Diddy party freak off.
He did bring in a case of baby oil. I was wondering where, but now that makes complete and utter sense. Okay, Rob, there's a lot of people. It's about 50-50 sentiment now. People are seeing the consistent knocks on the 105 door, the 107 door fail, come back down. And they're saying, look, this is like not a bull market, right? Because when we start seeing that, we typically see momentum and velocity through these moves, but we're seeing a pullback.
We're not going to have them early day bull market swings like we used to.
The other people, Rob, the other 50% say the fact that we're trading above $100,000 and we're seeing these small spurts is actually a positive. Where do you land? And what are your thoughts? I mean, going up to 107, but immediately retracing the entire move is not really super bullish, right? This still tells you there's a lot of sell pressure. What are your thoughts on what's going on here?
All we're seeing is just a mature market. Bitcoin has left the nest. You know, once he sat on the couch, played video games in mom's basement, and now he's got a suit on, and he's secure.
I don't know what the hell you're talking about, dude. Okay, what are you saying?
At Bitcoin's previous price swings, where you got these violent candles to the upside, massive sell-offs, just crazy swings in the market. Bull markets were just insane. Nobody knew what was going on. Today we're at 35,000. Tomorrow we're at 50,000. The next day we're at 18,000. The next day we're at 24,000. Those days are gone, man. And this is not a small little tugboat that's flying around the harbor. This is an aircraft carrier. This thing takes a massive amount of momentum and energy and power to turn on a dime. And so for that reason, from this point forward, we are done. We are done with the massive, massive price swings. Will we see 10% days out of Bitcoin? Sure. Will you see Bitcoin go from 105 to 116? You can go 10% up. I think that's still in the cards. But what we're not going to see is Bitcoin go from 105 to 165,000 in a week or two. Those days were normal, but they're not now. And so, hey, we've matured. We are a tier one asset in the commodity space. And just like other tier one assets, they just don't swing that hard when there is buying and selling pressure. So there you go.
Speaking of buying and selling pressure, this is from Glassnode. Accumulation is now visible across nearly the entire wallet spectrum. Even Bitcoin holders who have less than one Bitcoin have flipped from distribution to light accumulation, joining larger cohorts like the 100 to 1,000 Bitcoin wallets, which are at around 0.9. Now, this is a 0 to 1 scale. Closer to 0 means they're selling. Closer to 1 means they're buying, aka distributing or accumulating. And the 1,000 to 10,000 Bitcoin wallets are at a 0.85. Only the 1 to 10 Bitcoin remain net sellers. And so not the shrimps, but the medium-sized people, right? The people that have anywhere between $100K to $1 million. They're the only subset of wallets that are currently in distribution versus accumulation. And so we'll see that. And maybe we are seeing that reflect in the price of BTC. We already went over that. Let's take a look at this. Some macro news for you. We'll get into Japan as well. And while a lot of people are scared, excuse my language, shitless about what's going on there in Japan, they even have their prime minister sounding the alarm. But first, Russia and Ukraine will immediately start negotiations towards a ceasefire to end the war. I think that's where we saw the small spike in Bitcoin as it was trading close to around 103.5K, shot up to 105.3. We also have this. This is from Marty Party. The Fed says central banks stand ready to provide liquidity. And speaking of the Fed, take a look at this. Can Trump fire Powell? Okay, there was a hearing. A federal appeals court further supports their view that the Supreme Court would likely permit the president to fire Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. For fire him for cause, removal restriction will be held unconstitutional. Now, to be fair, a lot of people think this is a good thing. I think this would actually make the markets tank. because the markets don't like indecision or uncertainty. They know exactly who Jerome Powell is. They've known him for the last 6 years, right, or 5 years, and they get someone new in there. They're not going to know, so they're going to pull their money out of the market. So if this does happen, don't blow the whistles and the bells yet, because I think there's going to be a big drawdown in the markets, but ultimately everything will come back.
How on God's earth could he not fire him and all of a sudden cause massive rally in the markets? If he fired Jerome Powell, you best believe the markets will go absolutely ape shit, because he would put somebody in there that's going to cut rates. He said it time and time again. What happens when the Fed cuts rates? And just give me any answer that makes sense here. What happens when the Fed cuts rates?
That's a loaded question.
It's loaded with common sense.
No, it's not. How much do they cut? Do they cut out of nowhere? Do they cut off of bad data?
How many times? How many times has Trump tweeted that Jerome Powell should cut rates and how he's Mr. Too Late, that he's an idiot, he's stupid, he should cut rates, and he's always known to cut rates way too late? Obviously, any candidate that he would put in to replace him would cut rates. There's just no way around it. And so if he fired Jerome Powell, damn well rate cuts would come in at the very next meeting that new chair was in the meeting with. It's just the reality of it, bro.
If he cuts rates, if he fires Powell, the markets will sink.
Why?
I just said it.
Because of indecision? I don't understand.
Uncertainty.
There's plenty of certainty. The rates will get cut. That's
not a certainty. That is not a certainty. It doesn't just come down to Jerome Powell.
Let me ask you. If Donald Trump has a conversation with somebody that he's going to nominate, he's saying, pretend I'm Donald Trump and you're someone that wants to be a Fed chair. And I say, look here, we're getting rid of Jerome Powell. He won't cut rates. Will you cut rates?
You understand how the FOMC works, right?
I understand there's a board and there's other people.
Yeah, they vote together.
There's one man. What happened to SEC regulation when Gary Gensler got fired and got replaced by his pro crypto chair?
Nothing yet.
They dropped every single lawsuit, and they're about to vote on, or they're about to put in a bill for a stable coin, and we're going to have progressive regulation down the pipeline here. And so it's obvious front and center. If there's any certainty, would be if Jerome Powell is fired, rates will be cut the second there is a new chair put in place. And I just don't see no other way around that.
Both can be true at the same time. He gets fired, the markets tank. The guy comes in, cut rates, the markets rally. That could be true. I'm telling you, the markets don't like uncertainty. And with a new guy, no matter what they think he's going to do, it is still a new Fed chair.
You know what's uncertain is what the hell Jerome Powell's going to do. Do you think he's going to cut rates in the next meeting?
He's been at the helm for 5 years. They know exactly what he's going to do.
Let me ask you. When do you think they're going to cut rates?
When the numbers,
there's no certainty.
Yeah, there is. He's laid out his groundwork for how he's going to do it. And it's, we need the data. We need to look at jobs numbers. Blah, blah, blah.
He's basically muddying the waters because there is no certainty. Nobody knows when they're going to cut rates. He doesn't even know when they're going to cut rates. Nobody on this planet knows when he's going to cut rates.
But they know who Jerome Powell is.
If Donald Trump put in a new Fed chair, there's one thing that's certain. Rate cuts are coming. If Jerome Powell stays, which he more than likely will, I have zero idea if it's the next meeting, the following meeting, the next meeting. I don't know if it's this year. I have no clue when they're going to cut rates. Zero clue.
But you know that if the numbers continue to be positive, then yeah, he'll cut rates. We don't know with the new guy. Anyways, I don't think it's going to happen.
We're almost at we're at sub 3%. We're at that 2% goal. They still haven't cut rates. They talked about historically. We need to get inflation down to 2%.
He's worried about tariffs.
It's at 2%. Then he says, "Hey, we're worried about tariffs," and then CPI drops lower than expected. What else? There's no reason to keep the rates where they're at, other than he's just flexing. He's like, you know what? Y'all have no idea what the hell I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you I want 2%. 2%'s here. We're not going to cut rates. I'm going to tell you CPI is dangerous because of tariffs. Oh, CPI is lower than expected. We're not going to cut rates. And so for me personally, I have no idea when we're going to cut rates. But I know if Donald Trump put in a new chair, there's one thing I know. Rates will get cut.
All right, we'll see. I don't think it's going to happen, but if it happens, you watch the markets go down. Big red day. All right, let's talk about Japan. Japan Prime Minister Ishiba. Japan financial situation worse than Greece. May I remind you, Greece literally tanked. It was in 2015. They missed the payment to the IMF, and the economy collapsed. And that is the country Japan's prime minister is literally saying that is where our economy is. That's not good. Correct me if I'm wrong. Top 5 economy in the world, correct? In GDP with Japan? Number 1 holder of
one thing Greece got that Japan don't is these amazing euros. My Lord, that beef and lamb put on that little spindle that they sliced there to order. Throw some fries in the euro. That is the secret sauce there most people don't know about.
Okay. Keep going.
Thanks.
Keep going.
This is I don't know what the hell that was. Maybe you do need to wear some slacks. I don't know. Sightbringer had this post in reference to Japan. This is a major inflection point, and most people have no idea what it means. Here's the truth. Japan's debt to GDP is over 260%, but the market tolerated it because of one illusion. It's all domestically owned and it's safe. That illusion just cracked because of their own prime minister admitting systemic insolvency. Now, combine that with rising yields, their bonds at 40%, or 40 years sitting at 3.5%, a collapsing currency, the Bank of Japan losing control of the bond market, a flood of Japanese capital fleeing into the U.S., especially Bitcoin and tech, structural demographic collapse. This isn't a Japan story. It's a beginning of a global sovereign unwind. Japan is the canary in the bond coal mine. Bitcoin is the exit, not just from inflation, but from broken governments. I tend to agree with what this said. There's a reason. Now, a lot of people are confused by the bond market. We are programmed to see when price goes up, percentage goes up. It's a good thing, except when it comes to the bond market. If bond prices are going up, that means something is breaking. Okay, that's a negative. You want to see bond coupon rates come down, that is a positive. What do we see from the U.S. 10-year up, the 30-year up, the 90-day, I believe, is up. Japan, 20-year high on their 40-year bond is at 3.5%. It is unsustainable, and a lot of people are worried Japan's economy is going to collapse. And the prime minister came out and said, look, we can't do tariffs. We're already under a lot of pressure, and if we got to pay tariffs to the U.S., we're going to crumble. And so, yeah.
So you're saying that Japan's economy is going to collapse?
I mean,
I think what we'll see is just the same playbook from most countries.
This is their prime minister.
I understand that. But what I think you'll see is that will come in hyperinflation. Now, the reason Greece collapsed and
they were
still
drowning.
around. Okay,
they were
was
drowning
because
in
they
debt.
were tied to the EU, and so they share. Portugal was in the same boat, and so Portugal, Greece, they single-handedly devalued the euro and the European, I guess, finance as a whole, or particularly the euro. The euro, it got all tied together. A lot of strong economies. Portugal and Greece weighed it down. That's essentially what happened. And Japan's in a different situation. Japan is on its own, does not share any currency with other Asian countries. And so what I think will happen is that just like any other country, just take a play out of the US. The US, it doesn't operate with other countries as far as like we don't have a basket currency with other countries. We run ours, other people use our currency. But Japan is going to do exactly what we do. As soon as banks start to collapse, as soon as companies go under, as soon as there is fire what's going to happen? Japan's going to print currency. They're going to bail out. They're going to put in money.
Robin, you can't make that comparison, bro. We export dollars. They don't export yen.
Chile, Argentina.
They can't do what
Brazil,
we do. You know what they're going to do?
Country after country.
Rob, you know what they're going to do?
Zimbabwe, like all countries, once it's, you either collapse or you print. Which one you think?
Yeah, and then you print yourself into hyperinflation, and then Argentina happens.
Then what
they're more likely.
Give me one country that collapsed and hasn't come back.
What they're more likely.
Yeah, no, just tell me.
Yeah, because they needed funding. They needed someone to prop them up, which is what Greece did, which is what Argentina.
Because they were part of. It would be like saying California is going to go under. The U.S. won't let it happen. If
yes,
the
but
EU,
we have the power of the printer. They don't. We're the world.
They have their own printer. They have their own currency. They have their own yen. That's what I'm saying.
We can print. Okay, dollars are used in global trade. Yen is not.
What did Argentina do? Did they not print?
They did. That's why their inflation was 200%.
But it was either that or collapse.
Which it did collapse.
The money collapsed.
Yes, which people's lives collapse. If people can't afford to live, breathe, eat, whatever, what does that matter? What's more than likely for Japan's going to do is they're going to sell their bonds. And if they sell their U.S. bonds, they're the number one holder, it's going to destroy the U.S. bond market. And the Fed's going to have to step in, which they've already been doing, and they're going to have to buy up a shitload of bonds on their balance sheet because there's not a lot of buyers like there used to be.
I'm not saying that's not going to happen. I'm just saying that if what I'm saying is not going to happen is there's going to be a collapse. It's not like Japan's just going to melt down. They're going to go into nuclear winter for for their economy. They're not going to go through the Great Depression. They're just going to do what every other country does. And when things are breaking and then falling apart, they're going to print a crap ton of money. Will they do that simultaneously while selling bonds? So that way the hyperinflation isn't so rampant immediately? Sure. But in this day and age, every single country that has their own money, once shit hits the fan, they print. It's not even a question. It will happen. And a country will not let its people go hungry. They will not let all the banks go under, a run on every single bank, and let the entire economy collapse. They won't do it. They'll just print their way out of it. Every country that's been in economic turmoil has done the same thing, except for Greece. But why did Greece not do that? Because the EU backstopped it. Same thing with Portugal. But they had a country, they had the EU to bail them out. Japan doesn't have the EU. So Japan has to do what all the other countries do when they face an ugly ass economic situation, is print their way out of it. That's the only option. It's either that or you just go Great Depression and you go 10 years where everything is just down.
You know what's going to happen is they're going to stop capital fleeing the country. So they're going to stop letting their investors invest outside of the yen and Japan. And that includes Bitcoin. If people are fleeing, if you think your economy is collapsing, right, and the government sees capital flee, they're going to stop you from doing that. There's precedence to that in multiple countries, including the United States. And so that's going to be the first thing. The printing, sure, everyone prints. But at the end of the day, if you don't export your currency, you're going to run into hyperinflation, which is what Argentina did. Nonetheless, to wrap this conversation up, this is all a positive for Bitcoin because as people look to deleverage from their own governments and the currency of the country they live in because it's going down, and if they do what he says they're going to do, and they start printing money, guess what? Your money and your savings get devalued, and no one wants that, so they find other things. Gold and Bitcoin. Can't really do anything with gold. You can't move it, right? If you have hundreds of millions of dollars, good luck trying to buy the gold and store it somewhere. What's the other option? It's Bitcoin. And so A plus B equals Bitcoin. That's all I'm saying.
Especially in that scenario you're talking about, you don't want to go buy paper value gold, right? You don't want to go buy gold through your bank or go buy gold through whatever institution is offering it. You don't want to go buy gold stock. That's a bad idea. Because
you want the actual gold. If you're going to have it, you want the actual gold.
Because then what's going to happen is the government has an economic situation, and they just say, "Hey,
they'll go to the largest holders, right? The largest, what is it called? Custodians of the gold, and say, we need all your gold."
Or a bank will just go under and be like, "Hey, sorry, we didn't have the gold here, or you can't redeem it, or whatever."
Man.
Or you can get your gold in litigation. We'll pay you out a value of your gold later on. We don't have it right now.
The financial decisions that the governments and politicians have made, not just in the U.S., but across the globe, they're coming home to roost. And if you don't have any exposure to Bitcoin, you are going to lose. you're going to lose. And so we say this because there's a revolution happening, and you don't want to be on the wrong side of it, holding dollars or yen or yuan, whatever other shit foreign currency there is out there. You want to be holding hard commodity assets, and that is Bitcoin and gold. If you can do both, great. If you can only do one, if I can only do one, I'm going with Bitcoin because of all the reasons we say on the show for the last 4 years. We're not going to get into that again. There might be one saving grace, right? We talk about if countries start to dump bonds. Well, guess who's continuing to buy bonds? It's Tether, and they're continuing to move up the ranks. They have officially leapfrogged Germany as the number 19 largest holder of U.S. debt with $120 billion in T-bills that Tether is holding. Look at these numbers here, man. So Tether now holds $120 billion in short-dated U.S. Treasuries, surpassing Germany's $111.4 billion and securing 19th place. Tether generated over $1 billion in profit, 5.6 in the last quarter. Those are astronomically massive numbers. And so, yeah, this is pretty big. And then one more thing I do want to share. It is official. XRP futures are on the CME. Ripple's co-founder and CEO Brad Garlinghouse called the futures launch an important institutional milestone for XRP. If you're wondering, well, why isn't the price going up? Well, just to remind you, the contracts are cash settled and don't demand any XRP. So that is a futures. That's why we always talk about we want spot, not futures. Futures doesn't do anything for the actual asset because it's paper. You're betting on the future price where it's going to go. If you're buying spot, you're actually buying the asset, the underlying asset. Any thoughts on this, Rob? XRP futures? I don't know, I guess maybe.
You can't argue with where XRP's price is going. I would just say, if you're going to bet on XRP futures, I hope you're going long, at least in the broader vision, right? If you're thinking that XRP's price is going to be around $5 to $10 sometime later this year, perhaps early next year, why not get some of that paper futures? Why not put in a position? Because that seems like a damn smart move to me, man. Seems like a damn smart move. Rocco, what do you think? Would you buy some futures?
Or just buy XRP, man?
Well, no, for me, it doesn't make sense because I hold the XRP, but, that's me.
You can hedge.
For some people who want to speculate, financial institutions, that's the first step where Bitcoin and Ethereum was supposed to go through before become a spot. But we are on the right path. And definitely this is going to bring also XRP branding, get more recognized on
the Wall Street.
Yep. Yeah, that's what it is. So I
agree. And Ripple's making moves, man. Hidden Road, custody service. They're trying to buy Circle for $5 billion. So they got a war chest. They're free and clear of any government SEC lawsuit, and they're coming for the crown. And so I'd recommend having some exposure to XRP. Whether that's a lot or a little, that's completely up to you. I do want to give a big thank you. Today's show is also brought to you by Cam's Blue Wire Technology. If you run a business, you want to maximize your networking, IT, and cybersecurity, we continue to see it. Companies are getting devoured by criminals on the internet. Well, don't let your company be one of them. Hit up Cam's. Visit bluewiretech.com. There's a link in the description of this video. With that being said, we are done for today. Trading show goes live in about an hour. We're breaking down the charts, maybe putting some trades in. We did throw in a limit trade. We shared that with our Discord members. By the way, if you're not on a Discord, join. It's free. Link in the description of the video. That's all I got. Rob? Nothing? Rocco?
See you.
He sees me. Perfect. Rocco? See this tornado. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We appreciate every single one of you. Come and join me in about 1 hour right here on this channel. If you enjoy technical analysis or fundamental analysis, I love you guys. Until next time. Peace.
Ciao a tutti.
SINCITY, crypto, everybody know we here for entertainment and info, gonna show you how to get that big dough. So every day stay tapped in, for big facts, no capping. With Bitcoin, if you're in, then you win. We divide the pie with no fraction. It's Big Rob, David, I spit the game, but they gave it. Name the coin that's your favorite. I got dry powder, why save it? To the OGs, new beginners. Special shout out to the well members. Buy a dip, sell winners. Ain't really nothing you can tell sinners. Tune in for the latest new flavors. They gonna teach us mean coins. They polarizing like barbecue chicken pizzas. I laugh with a major grin. Laggers, we trade them in. Baddies, they came to sin. And sinners gon' play to win. Screaming hola till my bags are flowing over. Hold ya to the moon and to the solar. Won't I? Don't be letting FOMO control